Good evening, everybody. It's Father Joe here. Just nice to be in touch with everyone again on lots of different fronts. We've gotten some wonderful feedback from people who listen to the call to worship and the gospel and the homily on the weekend, and we're certainly going to try to keep that going every week of this virus crisis that seems to hold all of us together. I'd like to just talk a little bit tonight about one angle that struck me about not only the crisis, but uniquely when this crisis actually happened. I found myself reminding myself, and I always think that when that happens, I think maybe God's trying to remind me of something, that this is the Lent that we didn't choose. I don't know about you, but usually a couple of weeks before Lent starts, I keep thinking about, what am I going to do for Lent this year? And maybe I'll sacrifice this, and maybe I'll do something for that charity, or maybe I'll say these particular prayers or pray at this particular time, or whatever it is. So I have a nice little strategy as to how I'm going to hit Lent. And I did that again this year. But I suspect if you're like me, your Lent has been upended by this coronavirus situation. It is literally, and I've had so many people say words that I've found myself saying, that we've never experienced anything like this. So it's the Lent, not the one that we planned, but the one that has been served up to us. And just as when we plan our Lent, we trust in God's presence and God's guidance and God's inspiration, I'd like to suggest tonight that in this Lent that we didn't choose, God is still present. Somehow, in our moving through these days, now stretching into weeks, maybe into months, of what this crisis will be like, we are going to be called upon to sacrifice in a whole different way, a way we hadn't planned. Just think, we're trying to keep social distance from one another, to safeguard one another and to, as best we can, offset this virus and its impact in our culture. We can't do the things that we would normally do. Now, granted, we have a lot of time with our families that we might not otherwise have had, especially if moms and dads are working from home and kids are out of school. But there still is an element of sacrifice in this Lent, a sacrifice, once again, that we didn't choose. How do you see that in your own life, this Lent? Can you look at the inconvenience, the changes, the interruptions that this coronavirus situation has brought into our lives, and the different ways that we have to change our lifestyle and our schedules of life? Can you see in that some kind of a sacrifice, once again, not of your choosing? And I'm not even going to say it's of God's choosing, because I don't think God's behind all this. But just suffice to say, it's not of our choosing. And so in some way, we have to depend upon God. We have to be open to God. We have to pay attention to that question that always is going on in my mind and heart. How is God present in this situation now? And to what is God calling me in this situation now? So I throw that out here tonight as we're smack dab in the middle of this experience, and coincidentally, smack dab in the middle of Lent, that we let those two experiences be woven together. And in that way, even though we're not worshiping together each weekend like we normally do, even though we're not socializing and interacting with each other in the same way that we do, we will be bound together as a community of faith. Because this is what Pope Francis says about that. He reminds us that this present situation in which we find ourselves living more or less isolated, in this situation we are invited to rediscover and deepen the value of the communion that unites all members of the Church. And I would add that especially unites all members of the Church during the holy season of Lent. I hope your Lent is a good one. Make the most of this Lent that you didn't choose.